So a few weeks ago I did a video review on a very heavily requested reel, and that would be this reel right here, the Mavllos Pioneer GBC 200. And basically, to sum this reel up, is that this reel came with a very promising lightweight shallow spool for bait finesse, but unfortunately you had to stick this spool into a pile of shit. This reel had very weak brakes, and it also had a spool tension that was so hard to turn that you need a set of pliers or vice grips to turn this thing. Now, at least that's the case on my particular reel. Now, even though the reel is $30, I don't really see that it is worth taking the time or money to fix. Now, there is a magnet kit out there you can install, which I have installed, and it makes it fishable to a certain degree, but personally I would just save up about $10 more and get a proven reel like the Surinoi XF50, or maybe you can catch the GH100 or Spirit Fox on sale. Now, Mavllos actually watched that video and they left a comment in the comments section apologizing about the performance of the reel, and they said that they would send me out another reel that was fixed. Now, I waited and waited, I didn't hear from them, but eventually they did send me email after a few weeks, and instead of sending me a fixed version of the Pioneer, they actually sent me a whole different reel, the Athlon. And here's the box, and this box came in pristine condition. I don't know if you guys remember, but the Pioneer box was pretty smashed up. But let's take a look at this Athlon reel. Now, I was very aware of this reel. I've seen it on AliExpress, but you know, there was nothing really special about it that made me want to get one. But let's check this reel out. You can already tell it's got a pretty special paint job. Feels pretty sturdy in my hand too. Feels pretty heavy. Alright guys, take a look at this thing right here. Now, ever since the KR Phantom reel came out, AliExpress has been bombarded with rainbow colored reels, and this is one of them. But this reel has a slightly different rainbow coloring to it. It's not like a titanium deposition coating. It's something a little different, a little more understated. But as you can see, it's a very pretty paint job. Let you guys take a good look at this thing. Okay, pretty smooth actually, very smooth. But yeah, it changes colors. There's some light turquoise, some purple, some green, and I wonder what this thing looks like out in the sunlight. We're gonna test that out. So let me study this thing and I will get back to you guys. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the price of the Athlon. And right now on AliExpress, you're looking at about $45 for this reel. Now, of course, being a $45 reel, the frame and side plates are going to be made of graphite. And I believe this is based off the same frame as the Lurestar C9 Air. But unlike the C9 Air, which was, you know, super lightweight and it kind of felt almost fragile, this reel definitely has some heft to it. It's got some weight, but it feels super solid and very well built. In fact, I compared it side by side to the Abu Garcia Black Max. It actually feels a little bit better than the Black Max in hand. Now, I'm not going to go over all the specs. Instead, I'm just going to flash them on the screen for you. But let's go over some of the little features here. Now, the spool tension does click, but it is one of those clicks that are very muted and very mushy feeling. A lot of space in between clicks, kind of like the Abu Garcias. The Dragstar also clicks. Very muted and soft clicks for the drag star as well. But let's take a look at this handle. As you can see, it's made of metal, but it looks very, very nice. It's very skeletonized, but then they added a couple of little ports at the end to give it a distinctive look. And then also, let's take a look at these knobs. These knobs are EVA and they're very soft, but they're very thin and slender, which I like. They feel very, very comfortable. They're not like the bigger, chunkier knobs that you find on a lot of reels these days. But overall, the build quality is solid. Thumb bar, while it's not the most solid feeling, it's solid feeling enough. As you can see, it's got this little chrome trim around the gearbox. Looks pretty nice. And yeah, for 45 bucks, feels like a solid reel. And this is one of those reels that comes with, you know, the standard deep spool, and then also it includes a shallow finesse spool. Now take a look at this spool. It looks very familiar. It looks like the spool that comes with the XF50, but it's a little bit shallower. As you can see, the spool has an aluminum shaft as well as a bearing. Now, according to Mavllos, this spool weighs 11 grams with the bearing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the scale out and we're going to get some weights and measurements before we actually take this reel out fishing. Okay, so I got the scale out and let's see what the reel weighs. I think it's like 209 or 210 grams. So in ounces, we are looking at 7.5 ounces with the deep spool. And let's try it out with the shallow spool. So with the shallow spool, it drops down to 7.3 ounces. So yeah, it's not the lightest weight reel. It's about the weight of a CURADO K, but once again, this feels very, very sturdy, very solid. But let's get a weight on these spools. Now, before we do that, here's the brake system, the standard MagTrack style static magnetic system. And let's hope these magnets are a lot more powerful than the ones in the Pioneer, because I seriously doubt Mavllos would send me a reel to replace another reel that had equally shitty brakes. Okay, so deep spool, 16.6 with the bearing, so you're probably looking at about 15.5 grams, which is, you know, pretty good for a $45 reel. But we're interested in the shallow spool. You're looking at 10.8 grams with the bearing. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that bearing off and we'll see what's what. Okay, so we got the spool bearing off and we are looking at a spool weight of 9.69, so pretty much 9.7 grams. So while that is not nearly as light as a lot of these, you know, latest and greatest AliExpress bait finesse reels, it should be good for weights down to probably 3/32 of an ounce. It's probably going to struggle with, you know, a 1/16 ounce lure, and it's definitely not going to be casting any trout magnets. But then again, like I said before, I'm probably the only guy who casts trout magnets with a bait caster. So what we're going to do next is we're going to spool this reel up with some 4-pound line, and let's go trout fishing and test the capabilities of this shallow spool for the Athlon. So see you out on the water.
Okay guys, so a couple of weeks ago, the original plan was to go to my trout spot, which is about an hour away from me, and target trout with the Athlon. But unfortunately, the last few weekends I went, it's just been overrun with kayakers. So instead, we're gonna go for something a little bit more simple and a lot closer to me. And we're gonna do the old fish whatever bites, bait finesse style. Now, of course, we got your Mavllos Athlon, and this is what it looks like in the sun. You can see that you can spin the reel around. You'll see green, purple, a hint of blue, Very, very nice looking reel. I got 4-pound fluorocarbon. I have it mounted on a rod that I've been testing for a few months now. It's about 7 foot long. This is a AliExpress rod, and it's got a lure rating of 2 to 10 grams. So we're not really going to be throwing anything under 2 grams on this Athlon. But yeah, we're going to see if we can catch anything that will bite. And we're going to start off with upper end of bait finesse. It's going to be a Kitech Easy Shiner 3-inch with a 1/16 ounce head. And I put the total weight of this lure on the screen for you. I have the spool tension set to just minimize side-to-side play, so when I press the thumb bar, the lure falls actually pretty slow. And I got the brakes set to maximum just in case they suck. Okay, here we go. First cast on the Athlon. I'm gonna do a nice easy stroke. All right, so far so good. The brakes seem to be very, very strong. There was no fluffing, no coils that I could see. Lure going out there, probably like almost 20 yards. Retrieve pretty smooth. All right, I put a little bit more effort into that one, and spool was still controlled. So far so good for the brakes on the Athlon, and that was the main question, because if you saw the video, the Mavllos Pioneer, although it has a much lighter spool than this Athlon, the brakes were ass. So it didn't really matter how light the spool was because the brakes couldn't control it. But with this Athlon, it looks like we got some good brakes here. All right, let's start turning these brakes down. Actually, I'm gonna turn them down off camera and then show you guys the results. Okay guys, so it turns out the braking limit for this particular lure is actually not far off from the maximum brake setting. I can only turn it down 3 clicks before the spool would start overrunning. And let me show you what this thing can do. Now I'm gonna do some overhead casts now. Now with this long rod, it slings this lure out there probably close to 30 yards. Had a couple of loops there. So this thing may struggle with some of the lighter lures that I'm gonna try out. We'll do a couple more casts with this heavier lure. Had to thumb that one a little bit. But in the end, it can easily handle this upper end bait finesse lure with no problem. It's pretty fast spool too. That lure's hitting the water before I can react. But then again, I'm looking at the spool instead of paying attention to the lure. All right, one more cast. All right, so far so good. Brakes, not the strongest, but so far strong enough, and definitely worlds better than the Pioneer. Now let's try something lighter. Okay guys, the next lure we're gonna try out is a Rapala Ultralight Minnow number 4, which is about 3.2 grams, so about half a gram lighter than the previous lure. And I've already pre-casted this, and the best brake setting was actually 2 clicks away from maximum. And let me show you what this Athlon can do with this little hard bait. That's going out there probably close to 80 feet. Now I do have a tiny snap swivel that adds probably like 1/10 of a gram, but still. So that is very, very doable for a lure that is under 1/8 of an ounce, which is probably lighter than most people will be throwing, even for bait finesse. A couple more casts. I put a little bit more effort into that one. You can see that it did overrun just a little bit, but it sorted itself out. That's just a little easy sidearm cast. Now we're in the middle of the day, so nothing is biting, at least this lure right here. Okay, let's go even lighter now. Okay guys, next up is another little hard plastic lure. It's a fake grub that I got off AliExpress. And I think this thing weighs about 2.2 to 2.4 grams, maybe even less. I forget because there's different sizes that I ordered. But let me show you what the Athlon can do. Brakes are set in between 4 and 5. Lure kind of went out to the left, but it's going out there probably almost 70 feet with this lure. Let's do a couple more casts. And once again, this spool is pretty fast, so the lure definitely gets out there and lands quicker than I thought it would. And I'm catching salad on every cast. A couple more times with this particular lure. Yeah, it's going out there probably at least 70 to 75 feet. So far so good. Now with a, I guess, lighter powered rod, let's say the Ace Hawk CURADO with the ultralight tip, I'm sure it could do better. But so far so good for the Athlon. I know that the Pioneer definitely would not be able to handle this particular lure without blowing that spool up. That was just an easy sidearm cast right there. Okay, so let's change up lures and actually try to target some fish. Okay guys, so to see if I can catch just anything that will bite, I switched up to a crappie magnet with a 1/32 ounce jig head. So this is probably under 2 grams total weight. But that's all I brought with me. And let's see if I can get anything and just how well this Athlon can handle such a light lure. Okay, so the lure jerked off to the right. I should say to the left. Okay, a lot better cast. Had to adjust my release point. Fish activity everywhere on the surface, but none of them are wanting this white crappie magnet. I think I got to get it down deeper. All right, that's better. Probably looking at probably 50-foot cast so far. And I'm not going for max distance. So on a lighter powered rod, it should be easier for this Athlon to handle such a light lure. Ooh, I saw something flash on it. I've been watching some of my favorite YouTubers like One Rod and whatnot, and everyone is pretty much saying that it's been tough to catch fish for the last couple of weeks. Now, I've been gone on some trips to visit family, so I haven't really been fishing that much, but it looks like they're right. Okay, one more cast and I'm gonna try to change the color. Something a little bit more subtle. Oh no, that was salad, but I swear that salad was shaking its head. Okay guys, so last lure I'm going to try, it's going to be this different colored crappie magnet with a actual crappie magnet jig head that's a little bit heavier. I think this probably weighs at least 2.5 grams, so it should cast a lot better than that other lure. So should be able to get it way out there. Oh yeah, much better. Hitting at least 75 foot. Gotta let it sink. Just gonna twitch this. So far the Athlon, it's generically smooth. You know, it's not going to challenge any micro module Shimanos or even non-micro module Shimanos. But, you know, for a $40-ish reel, it is definitely acceptable. The palm's really comfortable. Once again, it's kind of based on that Lure Star C9 airframe. Now it's got some heft to it, so it feels solid. Knobs are comfortable, and you know, it looks good. Damn it, a fly just bit the shit out of me. All right, there was a little bass right there. All right, sun's coming out. Hopefully that will help out by allowing this lure to shimmer and give some flash. Wow, not even any chasers. Hopefully there'll be some fish right next to this dock. Okay guys, one more color that's a little bit more subtle. Kind of this bluish purple. And one thing I did notice is that the knob end cap on one of the knobs keeps wanting to unscrew. It actually fell off in the water off camera. Now I'm sure that's not on every reel, that's just this one in particular. But all right, I'm gonna give this a few casts. And we're gonna see if anything will take this color. Got him. Oh, I sight fished that little bass. I saw him just sitting there and I jigged the crappie magnet right in front of him and he took it. You got sight fished, little dude. I will take it. I was thinking I was gonna catch like a bluegill or I will take this little bass. This is a little bonus. Probably not even half a pound. Here he goes. All right, guys, on that note, I'm gonna go back home, get out of this heat, and we're gonna finish up on this Mavllos Athlon.
Okay, guys, so it's time to wrap up the review of this Mavllos Athlon reel. And as you can see, it actually performed much better than the Mavllos Pioneer. Now, I would call this thing a good BFS reel. It actually performed better than I thought considering the spool weight. But when it comes to, you know, the other bait finesse reels you can buy on AliExpress, like the GH100, the PW100, Spirit Fox, and the new KASTKING Zephyr, I would rate those reels higher than this reel, particularly when it comes to lighter lures. I'm talking like lures that are 2.5 grams and under. But this Mavllos Athlon with this shallow spool actually performed very good when it comes to bait finesse. Now, I do wish that we could stick the Mavllos Pioneer's super lightweight spool into this reel, but they are not compatible, unfortunately. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up was that I did backlash a lot with this reel, and that was totally my fault. But not one time did the line get in between the spool and the frame, so the tolerance for that is very good. Now, once again, I don't consider this reel to be quite as good as some of the more expensive bait finesse reels coming out of AliExpress, but then again, this reel is cheaper than those as well. And don't forget that it does come with the standard deep spool for regular bass fishing. So if you are interested in this reel, I'm going to leave a link to the Mavllos AliExpress store where you can get this reel, and go check it out. As you can see, performed very well, very well built, very solid feeling in hand, and it is a very pretty reel. Alright guys, thanks a lot.